All right, gearheads, welcome to Speed City F1. We just watched Oscar Piastri put it on pole in Barcelona for the Spanish Grand Prix. This is Jon Massengale. I'm in the studio in Austin, Texas, joined by Jonathan Green, Bob Varsha, and Chris Medland to join us here shortly. Jonathan Green, I know you were excited about this weekend. You were calling me yesterday, bouncing off the walls with all the things you want to talk about, but we got to start with Oscar Piastri putting it on pole by 2/10, which in 2025 is
Yeah,
huge.
that's a country mile in 2025. Yeah, that's the biggest margin of the season, which is saying something, and all done in the middle sector that Norris locked out. I mean, what an era we're in, where just one sector is all it takes for the difference between pole and second. No, and such a matter of fact lap. I mean, you heard him on the radio. He is talk about Sainz being a cool operator. Gosh. Piastri is as smooth as you like, and it was honestly just another day at the office. Like, could somebody get me a photocopy? I've just got pole.
Right.
You know.
I like the way you corrected yourself from cool to smooth right in mid-sentence. Nicely
Like
done.
that.
Hey, John and Bob Varsha, really excited to have you back. We missed you at Monaco last week, Bob.
Yeah, we did.
But Bob,
Thank you.
you're on a giant boat. Where are you, buddy?
I am on the good ship Windsurf, a five-masted motor sailor, and we are in the channel between Gozo and Kimura, which are two of the islands in the Maltese island chain. Malta, of course, a very tiny republic in the South Mediterranean, about 75 miles from Sicily to the north and 100 miles to Libya in the south. And last week, I was with a bunch of Formula One fans on this same boat. We had a great time in Monaco. And now I'm on a second cruise talking to a bunch of folks who turned out to be a number of Formula One fans. I was scared to death because I'm giving lectures. And I thought, oh, geez, I haven't got a whole bunch of Formula One fans. What am I going to talk about? Growing corn? But they, the first talk I gave, I said, raise your hand if you're a Formula One fan. And practically the whole room's hands went up. So I thought that was really impressive. And
what kind of dynamic is it? What kind of age group is it?
It's an older group, I must say. My wife and I have been arguing about this for 2 weeks now. Normally, it's like a 40s to 50s group. Rarely do they bring children with them. Sometimes they're, a little bit younger than that. But this group seems to me, anyway, to be significantly older than that. And I find that interesting. I have no idea why that would be, except folks who have, made their money and are taking off to see the sights around the world. And it's interesting to see those two groups back to back and what the Formula One fans in this group are interested in, as opposed to the Formula One fans in the dedicated group last week.
Yeah.
I tell you what, Malta, which is, a tiny place, about 500,000 total population, they have motorsports out the wazoo. They have hill climbs, drag racing, circuit racing, trials riding, motocross, on and on and on. The place just roars to the sound of motorsports. It's amazing.
That's awesome.
Of course, it's
I
also
did not know that.
mostly British.
Yeah, that makes
Brits.
sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guys, we got lots to talk about. An exciting qualifying, and like we talked about, Oscar Piastri on pole by 2/10 ahead of his teammate. I liked how they were avoiding giving each other a toe, so they're actually nicely competing against each other.
It's ramping up now.
Yeah, exactly.
And don't forget, this is the venue that Rosberg and Hamilton decided that they weren't going to play nice anymore.
That's right. They came together, didn't they, on lap one, turn one? I think it was, wasn't it? But yeah.
Yep.
Well, look, there's some great stories here. Alonso looking quick, Hamilton looking quick, Hadjar looking quick. Lots of good stuff.
Well, yeah, especially interesting, as you mentioned, that 2/10 gap at the top is a chasm by Formula One standards, and yet it tightens up from there. I'm looking at Hamilton in fifth, the entire top five covered by less than 1/2 second. So it's still tightly bunched. It could be anybody's race. I'm trying to see where 1 second covers, the top 10. Alonso, 0.738 seconds. It's tight.
Wow. Well, we also are. We're going to talk a lot about it tomorrow on our pre-race show, but we're going to touch on it today too. The flexi wing, the new technical directive, the way they measure all that, and I
It's
wondered, I
it's
wonder
one
how
and
it
a
might.
quarter Alex Brundles, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
one Chris Medland.
yeah. I thought that was pretty funny because Chris Medland does not weigh
It's
anywhere
not,
near 100
no
kilograms.
idea. Yeah, I know. Alex is tiny in comparison.
Yeah.
If you don't know what we're
Did anybody
referring
get caught
to,
up? I didn't see. I know they did the
should we
checks,
explain?
Yeah,
Uh,
Jonathan explained to Bob. Yeah.
So they were
did
saying
anybody?
that Sam Collins asked their weight of both Medland and Alex Brundle before he did his tech piece of how you have to load the front wing with 100 kilos. So he goes, it's about one and a quarter Alex Brundles and just one Medland.
Speaking of Medlin, he's on F1 TV right now. He'll be joining us shortly. So he's interviewing Andrea Stella. But Jonathan, I expected, I really didn't know what to expect with this. If the flexing wouldn't, the measurement, the way they're going to do it is going to make any difference today. But clearly McLaren is quick and, well ahead of everybody today. But what do you think about this? How's it going to affect the weekend?
I thought there was a very interesting interview with George Russell after qualifying where he said, "Is it made a difference? Or is it just, is it a nothing burger?" And he said, "Well, it's making McLaren slower, and that's good news." And I was like, okay, so that's what they've noticed, and I think that's perhaps where the times therefore between the top six are closer, and some of the margins that McLaren have, won by in the last few races may not be as, higher margin as before.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see how this whole weekend plays out, but
Yeah.
clearly McLaren is fast. And once again, Verstappen is always in the mix. But my gosh, maybe one of the biggest stories of qualifying, Yuki Tsunoda, dead last, slowest.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's starting to
No
become,
pace.
yeah, it's starting to become a story that we've been there, done that, got the t-shirt, and we were right all along, which is, it's not Yuki, it's not Lawson, it's not Albon.
No.
It's Verstappen.
It's the car.
It's Verstappen.
Right. It's Verstappen. Yeah, we all know it's the car, but Verstappen just, getting every possible millisecond out of it.
Yeah, Sky Sports have had Nico Rosberg all weekend, and it was really interesting when he went around the track and observed at close quarters Verstappen. And here is a world champion who's been there, done that, and he was just in awe of what Verstappen was achieving with this very, very dancey car that just doesn't look drivable, but he's making it so.
Well, it's an interesting argument, and I've made it before. And if I'm being redundant here, I apologize, but we keep hearing from Helmut Marko and Christian Horner, we need points from both cars, and they can't seem to find a guy in the second car to deliver those points. My assumption from that was because you made a car that only your number one can drive. You got to find some way to accommodate the second driver. I mean, Yuki said he went off at Imola 2 weeks ago because he tried to drive the car like Max does, essentially. And, took too much speed in the corner and got up on the curb and around he went. But, it just seems too obvious that you need to have a car that both drivers can drive. Even if, Max's car is totally different from Yuki's car, at least give Yuki the space to do what he does well.
Yeah. And did you see the analysis? Did you guys watch the analysis of Yuki's lap? And basically showing him understeering most of the lap and missing the, going wide on the apexes because he's understeering. He just had no front end on that car at all. It was crazy. And you think of Max likes a really sharp front end. So, I'm not sure how that plays out.
Yeah, I feel for anybody in that seat, but I agree with Bob. I think you've almost got to separate Red Bull into two teams within the actual Red Bull team and say, look, keep Yuki. He's doing as good a job as anybody else, and they'd look stupid if they brought in anybody else. They might bring in Lindblad. He's winning. He's going well. He's getting poles. But I don't think I don't think he's going to suddenly solve it either. But if they do something like that, I think they should sit down and go, all right, Max's side of the garage is sorted. Now this is our team that we need to get better.
Lindblad is what, I'm thinking about him. He's so quick. Maybe they could bring him in to do one of these rookie tests, Q1, and put him in the car later this year.
He's not old enough
but
yet.
If he continues to
later this year,
right, when he turns 18, if he continues to have that problem, then all you're going to do is destroy his career, like you've wrecked everybody else's. And when Liam Lawson got out of the Red Bull, got into the Racing Bull, suddenly he looks like a new man, and they're really racing well together, he and Isaac Hadjar.
Yeah, no question. Those two look very potent, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, well, let me just run down where we finished in qualifying today. Oscar Piastri on pole, followed by Lando Norris, followed by Max Verstappen, George Russell, Lewis Hamilton up in fifth, Kimi Antonelli in sixth, Leclerc down in seventh, Gasly, Hadjar, and Alonso wrap up the top 10. Then Albon, Bortoleto, Lawson, Stroll, Behrman, Hulkenberg, Ocon, Sainz, Colapinto, and of course Yuki Tsunoda. But there's lots of little interesting stories in here. Antonelli's been struggling a little bit lately and doing, a nice finish here in sixth today. Lewis Hamilton's struggling and lately and doing a nice job in P5.
And what's going on with Leclerc getting out of the car and not doing a second, push lap on the softest tires? Was he out of tires? I know they were going through him at a pretty good rate this weekend. And Hamilton winds up 2 places ahead of him on the grid. I mean, something.
Yeah, I don't know. Jonathan, do you know? Maybe Chris?
No, I don't. And it was odd when it happened. It was as though they messed up or something. But to not get the maximum out, especially when Ferrari, by their own admission, are struggling, just generally speaking.
Right. Yeah. So maybe Chris can tell us what the Ferrari people are saying about Leclerc's failure to run the second lap.
Well, he's talking to Christian Horner as we speak, so we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But yeah, that was I didn't understand that at all. But what
was that rumor I saw about Christian Horner being in line for the Ferrari job? What is that all about?
Yeah, I saw that. He came out and vociferously denied, as they would, but we all know that can mean nothing. But I don't know, that doesn't make sense to me. But what about Alonso? Did you hear him give us a big woo on the radio? He
gave us a whoop, didn't he?
yeah, he did.
Yeah.
I'm happy for him. Coach. Talk about what a great way to finish your career. I mean, geez, he's completely enjoying it.
Well, did you see?
And I was going to say, on the back of what Fernando said earlier this week about having Adrian Newey in the garage and in the engineering meetings for the first time since he signed on. He was in Monaco, just kind of watching everything. And Alonso was just thrilled that he was there. He said, look, nobody's going to blow smoke up Adrian's skirt. And that makes everybody work that much harder, try that much harder, focus more. He seemed just giddy about having Adrian around.
Well, it's funny. That's exactly what I was going to talk about, Bob, was Adrian Newey. Because I'll finish by saying some more things that Alonso said. He was basically saying it buoys the whole team, and it just brings this, this optimism to the team. But also, did you see what Adrian Newey said about Lance Stroll? And I take anybody saying anything about somebody's son whose dad writes the paychecks, but still, he was basically saying Lance Stroll is better than people give him credit for.
Yeah.
And here's Alonso finishing 5 places ahead of him.
Yeah.
At 43 years old, or is he 43 or 44?
Yeah. I also thought it was interesting that Adrian pointed out something that Alonso won't be too happy about, which is that he has identified an issue within the wind tunnel. That could take as long as 2 years to correct. And that is really damning.
Yikes.
Wow.
Yeah, I
that
imagine
brand
how much was
new
spent.
Wind tunnel.
I know.
Oh, jeez.
Speaking of spending money on things like that, obviously Lawrence Stroll's spent a lot of money. I noticed this week it's not F1 related, but Apple CarPlay has released this new platform, Apple CarPlay 2, and Aston Martin, they've chosen to launch it in the Aston Martins. And everybody was going, I wonder why they did that. And I'm like, I know why they did that, because Lawrence Stroll wrote a giant check to Apple to make that happen, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But hey, good on him, man. He's trying to make that team something with his money, and I'm all for
Yeah.
it.
I tell you what, I wonder if they can, Ferrari that is, bring those cars over to Gene Haas's wind shear tunnel in Concord, North Carolina, which is supposed to be the bee's knees, and give it a quick once over and see what the numbers tell you.
Well, Haas has access to two of the best wind tunnels in the world. Theirs in North Carolina, and Toyota's over in Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah. In Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So no doubt they've got. Hey guys, I want to talk about Williams cars, because Carlos Sainz out in Q1, and Albon, made it to, he qualified 11th, but that's surprising to me. What about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, reading all the press releases and so on, and all the comments from Williams over the weekend, they knew this was going to be a tough circuit because it is high-speed corners. That's where the car struggles, and it looks as though that's come to be a reality. Albon saying earlier in the weekend, it's better than it was last year, but it's still tough for this car.
Yep, no doubt. Bortoleto with a nice job qualifying P12. Bob, what do you think about that? Look at that.
Yeah, I think he's doing a great job. I will admit I didn't know much about him. I didn't know what to expect from him, but obviously you win an F2 championship, you've got something going on. And he really seems to be doing well, given the fact that team has struggled so much, both Hulkenberg and Bortoleto, with the Sauber car. I would say he's definitely a man of the future in this. We've talked about it before. It's a sterling class of rookies, and they're going to be the next wave. They're going to be here for a long while to come, and they'll be battling with the Piastris and so on for the years to come.
Well, and
the other thing I was thinking about was the tires. I know we talk about tires all the time, but there seem to be so many unknowns and so many differences between teams. Some people really seem to have it figured out. Others seem to struggle like crazy. And I suspect Carlos Sainz is one of those. I mean, he's no stranger to this racetrack.
That's true.
And the fact that, Alex Albon can make the car work, and Carlos doesn't seem to be able to. I'm looking at the tires and seeing what the problem might be.
I didn't write the stats down, but Carlos Sainz has a tremendous record here in the Spanish Grand Prix in particular.
He scored points in every Spanish Grand Prix.
Every time he's been here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. Hey, well, we got lots to talk about, but let's get a quick break in, and hopefully Chris Medland will be joining us here in a little bit too. But you're listening to Speed City F1, back after these messages. All right, let's check in. We got Mike Bowles, we got Joe of Oyster Bay, Kevin Kelly, TW, Bill Ricker, Andy P, all the usual suspects on YouTube. Bill Ricker's got his second cup of coffee, it looks like. And Kevin Kelly says,
my second gin and tonic.
That's right. What is it? What time is it there? 4:30?
Andy 5:30.
5:30? Yeah.
It's 5 o'clock here, folks.
It is 5 o'clock somewhere where you are. Nice.
That's
TW
a good line
says
from
having second thoughts. He could be he could probably be 7-9 in driver standings. Yeah.
That's what I just read. Yeah. That's an interesting line. And I hate to say it, but are we going to be talking about Sonoda at the end of the weekend? And
I like Kevin Kelly's comment. He says, Red Bull, leave Hadjar alone, please. He needs a good life. Okay, Kevin, that's the comment of the day so far. I like that. Let's see. Andy P says that Aston Martin story proves that it's just not about money. It helps for sure, but you still need to you can cure a lot with money, but not everything. That is true. That's great.
Yeah, do we believe this story about Ferrari looking at Horner, or is it just the interweb?
I feels like an interweb thing to me.
Yeah, I do too.
I don't
He
know.
denied it.
Yeah.
And I think it's a bit far-fetched. And I don't think Frederick's under any pressure just because Hamilton's not happy.
No.
I mean, Fred's been pretty honest saying, look, we've got a balance problem with the car. It's as simple as that.
Right. It's going to take time to work out. Yep.
Yeah.
They got Isaac Hadjar on F1 TV. Chris is not there right now, so he may be joining us, but they got Isaac. He's got a big smile on his face, rightfully so.
Rightfully so,
Oh,
yeah.
That's who I was going to talk about next was Hadjar and Gasly.
Mm.
Yeah. Hadjar's killing it.
Well,
Yeah.
and I hate to say it, and I don't want to be Debbie
Here we
Downer.
go.
To Speed City. Hi, this is Max Verstappen, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
Welcome back. We just watched a very exciting qualifying for the Spanish Grand Prix. It was exciting and had lots of interesting things going on, but we're going to talk about Isaac Hadjar right now because he finished in 9th position in qualifying. And according to his boss, the ultimate boss of the Red Bull team, Christian Horner, he is the best rookie in the field. Of course, that's a Horner-like statement, if I have to say. But Jonathan, what about this guy?
Yeah. And note to Christian, this is how you bring a young driver on. Yes, you're getting the best out of Hadjar. He hugged Anthony Hamilton because of his first mistake, and he's never looked back since. They're giving him the time. They're not treating him like Lawson, messing him about, where Lawson's head is probably fried right now. And Hadjar is betting himself into Formula One, which is a tough thing to do. It's a big step up from F2, regardless of where you finish in the top 10 at F2. And sometimes, like a Drogovic, you don't even get a chance, whereas Hadjar's got that chance and is taking it with both hands.
Yeah, well, I've been impressed by him, and between he and Antonelli this year, those two have been the best. And but look, we got to give credit to Hadjar today because he's it's a great job, and in that Red Bull system, if you're doing a good job, you're doing something right for sure.
I hate to say it, but when are we going to talk about Colapinto?
Yeah, good question. Hey, Bob, you're muted, but I want to get your take on this. Because I don't know, Jonathan. I mean, wait, Bob's giving me the
finger,
the not that finger,
the wagging finger.
Go ahead, Bob.
The captain is talking on the PA system, and I didn't want it to bleed over.
Oh, okay.
So really, this is a reality show Love Boat for silver-haired folks, right?
He's muted again. Bob, you're muted again. You're talking away, but well, before we get Bob's take on Colapinto, give us yours, Jonathan.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but I still feel. I mean, we've said the Red Bull story. I mean, he had a mechanical today, not his fault. But when you look at all the sessions, he's not even showing. And again, he replaced Doohan. There's a chance. Briatore's saying, in typical Briatore fashion, he doesn't know whether it's 1 race, 4 races, 5 races. He'll decide. But performance is all that matters. And right now, he is not performing. So Alpine find themselves in the same situation as Red Bull. And they, too, are puppeteering young careers. And Colapinto came in with such blinding reputation after last season. Now he's looking very ordinary, and you have to scratch your head as to whether Doohan's going to get back in the seat.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd agree with all of that. I'm trying to remember because I don't want to say something that's not true about what I thought of Colapinto when he came in last year. Now, he was immediately successful, scored points, and then started crashing. And that probably tells us something about his approach, that perhaps he gets a little bit flustered, that he starts to try too hard and then starts crashing again. And here he is, and he's not doing much with that car, but then again, Pierre Gasly hasn't been doing a whole lot with it either. So, Colapinto, put him in that rank of very talented, but maybe not quite ready for F1 level pressure,
All right,
stress, and intensity.
Okay, so what does that say about Jack Doohan, Bob?
Same deal. I think Jack Doohan probably is right there with Colapinto in terms of talent. Let's not forget Colapinto is partly there because he brings a lot of money.
Yeah.
And that can make up for a lot of things on your resume if you're not exactly, digging diamonds with every race. Right now of that group, Hadjar has obviously taken himself a step above. Liam Lawson is in the process of doing so, I'd like to believe. Colapinto, no, not yet, with his second team. Jack Doohan, not yet, but he hasn't got a chance. That's kind of where I stand on those four, at least.
I like what Andy P says on YouTube, because Andy P says he says Franco's not been good since coming back. I think it's more a team thing, but he isn't getting good advice like he did at Williams. I agree. I can't say enough about what I think of Williams and the team that they put together and James Vowles. So, Andy, I think I agree with that. But go ahead, Jonathan. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a conundrum for Alpine. You've got Flavio, who manages Colapinto, and Doohan. Is it that way? Is it that way around? I can't remember. No. But either way, Flavio is de facto principal, but is now looking for a new team principal. And obviously, you've heard that they've got, when they first announced Colapinto back it was sort of like, we're going to give him 5 races and assess it going into Silverstone, almost hinting that there might be a test off between those two to see who deserves the drive. And okay, there's some sense to that. But I think what we really should be looking at is who Briatore finds to be the team principal of the F1 team at Alpine. And if it's somebody good, that could have a bearing on the decisions of the drivers.
But what does he have to offer? Would you want the job of team principal at Alpine after all of this leadership they've been through, going all the way back to Otmar Zafnauer?
Not while Flavio is still in the middle of it, because whoever you put in there, he is not, he's not a shy and retiring advisor. He's going to be like Helmut Marko. He's going to be running the team.
Your team principal could be a puppet.
I would want a very specific agreement with Flavio. A, here's your job, here's my job. B, here's Renault management, who have been, their sword has been bloodied so many times with team principals. You protect me from them, and I'll take a shot at this. But
okay, Greeny,
we all know Alpine's a mess.
Go ahead.
Greeny, you'll like this one, Greeny, since you're a Dallas Cowboys fan. Which is the worst job, head coach of the Dallas Cowboys or team principal at Alpine?
Pretty much salary-wise, better to be on the Cowboys. But no, it's a poison chalice either way. I think they bring Ryan Reynolds. He's proved he's a fantastic football manager, and he is an investor in the team. And he's got his own phone company. He does a bit of acting, and he's funny. So let's bring him in.
Hey, you can't. Why not? At this point, why? I'll take him.
Yep.
This is about the only person Flavio would not know where to sit himself.
Right.
Hey, speaking of all these Red Bull drivers that we were just talking about a minute ago, what about Lawson? He did it. He did the team thing, Monica. You weren't with us, Bob, but you saw it. Obviously, he did a great job of the team thing, but he came through that with such confidence. I mean, you can tell in the still photos that I've seen today of this weekend in Barcelona that he's walking with a swagger, and he did pretty good today in 13th. What do you think?
Yeah, the Lawson train is back on track, I would say, and he's got a good set of coal in the caboose, and I think he's going to be. I think he's going to push Hadjar now, and actually in some of the in free practice, he was top 6. He and Hadjar have been top 10 throughout most of this weekend, and that there's no question that RB, we keep saying it, is a good car.
Yep.
Hole in the caboose. Don't you know where the coal goes? The coal goes at the other end train.
Oh, okay. What's the caboose for then?
The caboose is the last thing. That carries a big red light that tells a train coming from behind that you're there.
Oh.
I think it's an antiquated car, actually. I think
I was born in the industrial age. I can't. Yeah.
Hey, Kevin Kelly on YouTube brought up a good comment. He said, "What about Otmar's new team? Isn't he gonna team up with Porsche?" And I mean, there's actually getting some legs to this rumor. I say rumors more than that. So what do you guys think?
I haven't taken it seriously. I'm not being rude to Otmar, but I haven't taken it seriously because it took 48 years for Cadillac to get onto the grid. And they had to sort of have sustainability and everything else, and they had to show that, I mean, the hoops that they had to jump through to get the 11th team means that, to me, a 12th team is very unlikely.
Yeah, I have to agree.
Well, somebody brings gobs.
I mean, the fact that it's got Otmar and Porsche involved in the rumor makes you think it's possible, but it just, like you said, it was so hard for Cadillac. My gosh, it's just crazy.
Well, plus Porsche and Audi are sister companies, so why would they go race against themselves? Even though they did it in sports cars, but this is a whole different pot of money. Although, I mean, Otmar is definitely out there. Obviously, the man loves Formula One, wants to be in it, and I hope he can find a place in it because he's vastly experienced and so forth. But
we should get him on. We should get him on.
Yeah, we should get him on.
Let's give him a pulpit to talk about what he's actually thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yep, no doubt. Hey, Jost Clary on YouTube had a nice comment. He said, "If you put Piastri and Verstappen on the same team, who do you think will rule?" We saw some head-to-head with these guys, and Piastri,
in which car?
Well, yeah.
If
really
you put them both in McLarens,
yeah.
That I'd say Piastri probably, but if you put them both in Red Bulls, Verstappen.
Well, at the current car, because I mean, like you were saying earlier, the car is just perfect for Verstappen. Obviously, right now I say perfect. I mean, a lot better than anybody else. But speaking of Verstappen, so he was 1/10 off of the McLarens today, and wow, look at that, identical lap times, by the way. The best lap in Q3 for Verstappen and Russell. Again, that's at least the third time this weekend. 1:11.848 for both Verstappen and Russell. But
we had that in free practice too, didn't we?
They had it. Yeah, at least this is the third time that's happened this weekend, which is just insane, right? To think about.
Break it up, guys. Yeah,
that's so Formula One, but Verstappen, again, at this track, we were thinking that Red Bull, nice high-speed corners might be quick again because they weren't in Monaco. But what do you think, Greenie?
Well, I think, Verstappen's dragging everything out of the car and himself, and he's put himself in a winning position again. He won this race last year from the front row, mind you, but there's no reason, given that McLaren are in the box seat in terms of strategy. Obviously, Tsunoda's nowhere, and so he can get no help. But Verstappen kind of knows that going into the weekend. And I think, another unbelievable, Imola overtake like he did.
Yeah.
Job's a good one.
Yeah. I'd love to be in the strategy meeting when they say, okay, let's go back to Imola and see what Max did and how we're going to counteract it. Certainly, Oscar's going to have his head on a swivel, and he'll have Lando right there to be the rear gunner, or vice versa. Oscar protecting Lando, but one way or another, they got to keep Max behind him, because this is the kind of track where you get out front and you can drive away from people.
Yeah.
Well, and this is going to be an interesting time for Stella and Zach to. Like I said, I'd love to be a fly on the wall in their team meeting, because this is a weekend where they can stop Max from upsetting the cart, and it's 3 points the difference. It doesn't matter within the team who wins the race. They just don't want to be fighting each other and let Verstappen come through. We saw, as I said, we mentioned the Rosberg crash with Hamilton a few years ago. That was poorly played. but it was, I remember that weekend strongly. It was an accident waiting to happen. And it did. So, I think I hope McLaren play it well, because they really do need to work together at this stage in the championship with where it is to stop Max becoming a threat to both of them.
All right, well, guys, we're going to get a quick break in, and I just got a text from Chris Medland. He's going to be joining us here just in a moment. And we're also going to talk about, Jonathan, you put a story in the doc about papaya rules. We're going to talk about that as well. You're listening to Speed City, back after a quick break. All right, let's see. Chris is texting.
Top of the hour.
Chris is saying,
hey, folks on YouTube, that's my cabin attendant.
Your cabin concierge.
That's right.
Varsha. Okay, let's see. Oh, wow. I saw Chris doing all the Team Boss interviews, and he said we might be able to use those. So we shall see. We may not be able to use them until tomorrow, but obviously, but cool. Well, Chris will be with us. Let's see. Did I miss anybody on YouTube today? Oh, let's see. All right. Sorry, guys. Yeah, Kevin Kelly talking about a 12th team. Possible 24 cars on track. Let's talk about traffic. Yeah, spot on. It would be cool, man.
Get rid of all impeding penalties and let everyone fight it out.
There you go, Chris. Hey, buddy, good job, man. We've been watching you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry that you can't always hear me when I'm doing that stuff, but hopefully some of those interviews will be available to us shortly.
Chris, I don't mean to be rude, but you don't even weigh half an Alex Brundle.
Thank you so much. That hurt. I'm still reeling from it.
I bet.
Chris, 100 kilos, that's 220 pounds. You probably weigh 50 pounds less than that. That's not even close.
I'm 70 kilos.
There you go.
Oh, that's a lie. 72 now. Marathon's over.
That's true. Nice. We got a nice crowd on YouTube, Chris. We got lots of usual suspects, a couple of new folks, and we had a fun show so far, so I'm glad you made it.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Welcome, everybody who's new. Welcome back, everybody
Hello,
who's
Chris.
not. Hello, Bob. Where have you been?
Oh,
He's still out there.
He's
on the bounding main. I think we've just weighed anchor. We're heading for Sicily tonight.
Oh, dreamy. I hope you've got a glass of Aperol in your hand.
I shall.
All right, here we go, boys. Going back live.
Hello to everyone, this is Gunther Steiner, this is Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
Good time on today's show, and we've got Chris Medland, who's just stepped off of F1 TV's microphones and onto ours. Chris, how's it going, buddy?
It's going very well. It's clouded over here, which means I can wander the paddock without getting a massive sweat on like the rest of the weekend was like. But it's been a lot of fun. I've been speaking to a lot of team bosses after that qualifying session, and some are happier than others. We can put it that way.
Can we ask you a question, Chris? What happened to Leclerc? Why didn't he do a second run?
Yeah.
So I did speak to Fred Vasseur about exactly that. They were prioritizing the race. They just went into the whole weekend and certainly into today and thought, you know what? Our qualifying pace won't get us on the first two rows. We're not in the fight for pole, but also that's less important here. It's about our tyre wear. It's about our tyre allocation. So they wanted to save a set of tyres and keep two extra ones for tomorrow's race for strategic reasons. So he just went and did the one run. He did do them on new tyres, but just did the one run in Q3, and then that was him done. So they were pleased with that. They were happy enough with the time he did it at the time, but also what it opens up for them strategically. It sounds like everyone thinks this is going to be a two-stop race tomorrow.
Okay.
And like the softest tire, I assume they saved a set of softs by not running a second run in final qualifying. Do you anticipate the soft might come into play in the race?
Yeah, so, I think they might have done, and I do need to wait again for Pirelli are really good to give us the tyre allocations, but on Sunday morning. But what I think they did is they ran a set of the soft in FP3 to get a read on it as a race tyre, but also to use up one that they could have used in qualifying. And then they've held on to an extra set of mediums. So they can do a two-stopper with 2 stints on the medium and 1 stint on the soft. Now they know that soft's there. Or they can obviously use the hard as well. That's what I think they've opened up. We'll have to wait and see when the official allocation comes out. But the soft looks usable for some teams. It does look usable. Mercedes with George Russell did a very long run on the soft on Friday. And they're not particularly quick in race trim, but the tyre itself was usable with high fuel.
Hey, Chris, what other insights from some of the other team managers did you get?
Some really interesting ones, actually, because Toto Wolff I spoke to, and I could not get him to be positive at all. He was happy enough with qualifying, a little bit upset that obviously 1,000th of a second would have put them ahead of Max Verstappen, matching him for lap time, where George Russell was a bit painful for them. But then he just said, we don't have the race pace here. Like, I think it's going to be tough. It's going to be hot tomorrow. We're going to struggle. It is meant to be a few degrees hotter tomorrow than it was today. So I do think that it could really hurt Mercedes, but I tried to look for positives, and he was just like, "Nah, we're gonna find it tough." Now maybe they're just trying to talk things down and then exceed expectations rather than the other way around. But he really was quite pessimistic about Mercedes' race pace compared to Vasseur, for example, as I just mentioned, who thinks Ferrari have done everything right to focus on the race and be strong in race pace, and they're there in the mix. Right. Lewis Hamilton in 5th as well. Good starting spot for him, and his race pace is not in question, is it? So it's been qualifying where he's struggled. But the one team boss I actually do want to flag was Jonathan Wheatley down at Sauber, who I've done a big interview with for this weekend already on Thursday, but grabbed him after that session. And he was very happy and very impressed with Gabriel Bortoletto's performance all weekend. He said, I keep forgetting he's a rookie. You don't see a lack of experience from him. He's that good. Yeah. But also that they've upgraded the car and it's working better. That having a car that's working or competitive enough here should mean they're competitive at a number of circuits this season from here on out. And I said, okay, what can you do tomorrow? Starting 12th with Bortoletto, what's the potential? What's the target? And he went, well, I'm used to targeting first and second in my career, so I'm not going to change that. So he said first and second. So there you go. Sauber 1-2 incoming.
Wow. Okay.
Prediction of the year.
It's big. I tell you what, you could get some serious odds on that.
I'll bet.
Hey, Chris. Boy. Chris, I need you to check our homework because we've been talking all about this qualifying. It was great. And it was awesome. And the huge gap that Piastri put on Norris on everybody. But what are your takeaways, and see if we got it right? Because we know you're going to actually correct us. So let's hear it.
Well, I think that's one thing that you do mention. What a lap it was from Oscar. That's the biggest pole margin of the year so far, over 2/10.
Okay, we got it right. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a special lap. And Andrea Stella said the same, actually. He was really pleased with how both drivers were performing. And then at the end, great lap from Oscar to get it done. I don't think McLaren felt really under threat as qualifying evolved in the way that they have in previous races. They didn't think that they were likely to get pipped on the front row. Max got close, so did George. But they just felt they had that little bit more margin. But flip side is, this is a track that A, you can overtake, and B, remember George Russell's start last year going into the lead. It just being first and second doesn't guarantee you a 1-2 here by any stretch. So I think it's still set up nicely to have George and Max directly behind the two McLarens is almost as good as it could be. And I was impressed with Lewis Hamilton getting himself into P5 because I'm excited to see if he can convert that over a race distance. I was very disappointed, I guess is the word, with Yuki Tsunoda down in 20th. And Christian Horner did admit that there's always pressure if you're not performing, but that they're going to have to look into if anything was wrong with the car, because Yuki told them he actually thought the lap was pretty tidy and should be fine. And he was really surprised by the actual lap time. So they're going to look at that to see if there's something that they've missed. But if there isn't, Yuki's going to need a good race tomorrow.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, we talked a lot about Alonso. He's 43 years old. Today, he was giving us a woo. Are you ready if you're Lawrence Stroll to...
And it's kind of quite funny to see him celebrate a P10, but he did another good job. I really hope he holds on to that. Yeah, finally get off the mark this year at his home race would be great.
Yeah, and I think, and Bob can chime in here, and Chris, you know this, before Alonso, there was really no interest in Formula One. Pedro de la Rosa had done a little bit, but, Alonso was the chosen child, and F1 put a lot of time and energy into promoting Formula One because it's a bike culture in Spain, motorcycle. I mean, you only have to look at MotoGP; they're all Spanish. So Alonso has literally single-handedly flown the flag for Formula One in Spain, and now Carlos obviously joins him. So yeah, I mean, this is a long romance of his whole career, and those fans are his fans.
Absolutely. Carlos has said it himself, hasn't he, that when he first came here, when he was watching Formula One, you're watching Fernando. And then to have his own grandstand, as in Carlos's was, he said was special because he knew how much Fernando meant to the whole of Spain. So to even have any sort of support meant a lot. And I saw there's a lot of headlines made. I actually wrote about it as well when both Carlos and Fernando spoke about Alex Palou this week with the Indy 500 win. The stuff they said about him and how impressive it was. But what carries weight is what Fernando says in a strange way. It's not about Palou winning that race as much as it is about Fernando Alonso really being impressed by Palou winning that race. That's what really jumped out at me, actually, the way that the response went down. So he's still absolutely worshipped around here. And the noise the fans make, even when he just goes out on track to start a session, is great.
Hey, speaking of the 40-year-olds, Lewis Hamilton apparently got his memory back because if you guys heard through the weekend, he said, I've forgotten how to put a lap together, but he ended up in P5 today in qualifying. So that was nice to see. But that's pretty crazy that he would come out and say that. It seemed not a criticism. It's just shows where his head's at.
Yeah, and his old teammate, Nico Rosberg, made some very poignant points saying that... Yeah, very pointed in saying that had he ever noticed that with Lewis, that he gets down on himself, and he goes, absolutely. He said, if there is an Achilles heel in the 7-time world champion, it is that, which is he can be down and dour on himself. But he said, that's the period where you as a driver, if you are his teammate, have to excel because you don't know how long that period is going to last, and he will bounce back. And he will find his mojo. He always does. And this is Rosberg's words, not mine. And I do really think that is very true. Charles needs to jump now while Lewis is still struggling.
All right, guys. Well, we are just about out of time. One last comment. Lando, right before the qualifying started, said, strong. They said, how are you going to do? He said, we are going to be strong everywhere. And he said it with confidence. And that proved to be today. So we'll have to see how that plays out tomorrow. And speaking of tomorrow, we have a full day of coverage for you. We have a 1-hour pre-race show starting at 7 a.m. Central Time, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, followed by the race, the full race broadcast brought to you by the BBC team. And then you're back to us with Jonathan Green, Bob Varsha, myself, Jon Massengale, Chris Medland for our post-race show. So make sure you tune in tomorrow morning. Thanks, everyone. Thanks to the entire team there, including everyone I just mentioned. Thanks to everybody on YouTube, how you tuned in. However, we appreciate it. And we'll talk to you tomorrow morning.